cloud. Okay, we're recording.
All right, hello. Welcome to this meeting, the KUDO community meeting. What is it, March 11th? And it's our 37th meeting. Number of things to talk through. Of course, it's an open meeting. That's not really owned by anybody but the community. And it is being recorded. So whatever you say is forever in posterity. So, okay. So first, on the agenda is we're going to be doing a release for 011, and we did an RC release on Friday. Actually, it was there was a proposal put out, I believe it was by Elena, of doing RC releases. I think we need to revisit that and probably add some detail to that PR, but so far that has proven to be beneficial. 2 blocking bugs came out of that release.
What was the process you guys went through to verify an RC? That's what I was kind of up in the air about. Like, sure, you released it, but who's doing what? I don't know if we want to. I don't even know what Kubernetes does for their beta releases.
Yeah, well, there's certainly room for improvement, I think, and there's certainly improvement to automate and discover these things prior to the release. That is my hope. But in the absence of that, what we currently do is kind of twofold. One is I do some verification after the fact. I could have done this beforehand, actually, on building the operator packages, because those are important to me. Oftentimes, I'm verifying that the repository functions with the current version. So I'm doing some verification in that particular regard. Where I do an install. I wouldn't say I have a specific thing, but I do provide I go through a package create for many of the operators that are in the operators GitHub repository. And then Zane, you might be able to expound upon this a bit, but there are some tests. We use the current release for testing the operators in their E2E testing. And so there's some verification around that. You want to fill in blanks, Zane?
Yeah, basically it's KUDO just provide the RC to the operator developers, right? So like people like me who can test it with their own tests. And in my case, like we have some Kubernetes distro that is not like Convoy, for example. In that case, we want to test out with our tests that are really specific to the operator and doesn't cover. So yeah, we get a chance to like test. And sometimes we discover things there and just provide feedback back to KUDO.
All of this, of course, is on top of the fact that we do unit integration and E2E testing for what we have in KUDO itself, but it's obviously not exhaustive enough. I would love at some point to have a snapshot tests against our operators. I don't know if we need RC releases if we would do that, but what an RC release would allow is for others who might have their own repositories and their own interest to test in ways that aren't in our tool chain. So there's probably still value in an RC. The community is not large enough to see that value as far as I can tell. But that said, we're going to do the official V011.0 release today. And with that, our typical behavior is not to cut a branch until we need it. If we need a branch, we'll create a branch off that tag. We are also holding a couple of, or at least one, pull request to land until after that release. It's just not something that should be in the 11, targeting 12 for it. Everybody good? Excellent. I have, I don't know if we're going to follow the agenda exactly. We should talk about sprint themes. I'm not sure we have those this sprint. We should probably talk about that. Might hold on to that for a second. Community meetings. There's just been trying to make all these meetings happen. It's been challenging. Last week, we decided, hey, we always collide with, I think it was operator SDK meeting. Oh, SIG delivery. Thank you. Yeah. It was always colliding based on what our current pace or cadence was and timing. So we switched it out for the second and fourth Wednesdays, which is what we're on, which is great. The problem is 2 weeks from now, it also collides with most of our core team internal company meeting. So it is likely we'll need to readdress that. At some point, we had this on Thursdays and we switched it to Wednesdays to accommodate, I think, somebody in the community, and I don't remember now. Is anybody in the meeting now opposed to moving this to the second and fourth Thursday at roughly the same time? No.
I think that's a good idea. Like the Wednesday, just for whatever reason, everyone internally and throughout the community seems to put all their stuff on Wednesdays, and for I don't know, maybe we really like that we're halfway through the week and we just do all our meetings then. But Thursday would work great.
Okay, I will try to over communicate this via email and via the Slack channel, just to get any dissenting votes if there are any, but otherwise switch this to Thursday and then target the next meeting to be the fourth Thursday instead of the fourth Wednesday. All right. Also be mindful, I believe, our European friends can help me with this. I believe the US has had a daylight saving time. I can confirm that, but I believe Europe has one in 2 weeks, which actually might change the time for this meeting that we have scheduled on the fourth Wednesday or fourth Thursday. That I don't think it'll be a problem. But okay, what else? Why don't we have Tom? Why don't you? We have it on the agenda to talk about the KUDO Terraform provider. Do you want to take that?
Sure. So a few weeks ago, I presented the provider, Terraform provider that I built to kind of manage and orchestrate KUDO instances, allowing you to like piece together inputs and outputs of different instances together, and allow you to do GitOps things. Right now, it lives in my GitHub repo, which I don't think is the right long-term place for it. I think one of two places would make sense. One is inside of KUDO Builder itself as a community provider that users would install manually and then be able to leverage on their own infrastructure. The other option is inside of the Terraform provider's GitHub repo, which is managed by HashiCorp. Thank you. The benefit of being in the HashiCorp repo is that by specifying a provider of KUDO, Terraform knows how to download it automatically. You don't need to do anything magic on your end to get it available on your computer. So I wanted to get a feel for what people think about hosting long-term, short-term and long-term for that provider. Anything from, Tom, it's yours, you own it, so keep it in yours, to let's host it in Terraform's repo and try to have it as a first-tier provider and not something third-party that people have to do something special with that always feels different, even though it's the same. But I know I've worked at places that would probably not want to use third-party community providers, but they would if it was just hosted in a different repo.
Tom, I think we talked about this briefly earlier. I don't remember when, but I believe you said something about we could have it at Terraform repo, but also forked within the KUDO.
That could be a good model. So we could host it in both places and manage it ourselves in the KUDO Builder GitHub repo, and then merge on releases for when a new KUDO version comes out, for instance, or when we feel like there's another stable release, and not have to do all our management inside of a different GitHub repo, because I don't know exactly the permissions set on individual repos and how we manage that long term. So that could be a great hybrid approach where we kind of do both.
In that model, would the KUDO repo be the source of, would be the authority, or?
That's a good question. When people use it, they'd probably be pulling from the Terraform provider's repo. We as owners would be only operating on the KUDO Builder repo and then doing a port over on releases. Yeah. So I don't know what you mean by.
No, that's exactly the model I was hoping for. So that's the one I would vote for if we're taking opinions.
My only concern is with that. I like it. Um, is what happens when someone goes to open up a pull request? Are we able to have it in the README to say, and how would HashiCorp feel about pushing development and PRs over to there, and disabling issues and PRs on the HashiCorp org version of that?
Yeah, I don't like cherry picking. I think it's a pain. So I would not want to merge into HashiCorp and then have to cherry pick back to us and then merge that back in later. That would be
Yeah,
strange.
and we'd have to be really clear in the README to like shift people over, right? And which I think
Okay.
is fine, but I think we should clarify with them.
Yeah, there's a form that you have to fill out and a whole like process you have to go through. So during that process, we could identify those particular pain points and make a final determination about whether do the hybrid, do just over there or just over here.
One question. This Terraform provider is basically a provider for Kafka, right?
KUDO.
Okay, so it's only for KUDO, and you made a proof of concept with that for Kafka.
Yes, yes. I did the Zookeeper Kafka kind of combo. So I deployed
Okay.
both.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, I guess.
If that model doesn't work, what model do people prefer? I think the convenience of having on a Terraform makes significant sense to me.
I agree with that. Yeah.
For adoption, absolutely.
Yeah,
that's where you're going to see the most people using it.
If we're able to be code owners and have collaborator rights in that org, then I don't have an issue with that at all, right? If we're PRing and a HashiCorp employee has to do all that, then I can see some issue there.
Yeah, the only providers I've been like looking at long term are actually owned by HashiCorp. So the Kubernetes providers owned by a HashiCorp guy, AWS, Google, like all the ones we typically would use in our Terraform work are end up actually just being owned by HashiCorp themselves. So I think it'd be interesting what that looks like. So I'll have to reach out, and I should start that process.
I have one more question, and I'm okay doing this meeting if people are comfortable here. For now, I'm like, how does everyone feel about the KUDO team making the KUDO Terraform provider official as of this meeting, and voting to at least move it into our org for now, so that it's factored into our whole planning process?
Big fan of that.
I'm a yes as well.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, all present say yes or thumbs up. Yeah, Tom, if you, we can talk afterward about how
I should be able to do that.
Okay, great. Yeah, I think you have rights. So great. Also, there's some more due diligence and some things to fill out on HashiCorp. Or are you offering?
Yes, I will take point on the process of getting that into Terraform providers GitHub repo.
Fantastic. Okay, great. I'll turn this over to Alex now, as I'm going to finish up writing some notes around that just so that they're recorded. But the next thing on the agenda was webhook required or not, and Alexei was on point for that discussion, I believe.
Yeah. So now that the manually triggering plans PR landed, so the CAP 20, and we have upcoming backup and restore plans for Cassandra. We need to sort of talk about whether or not we want to make webhooks mandatory for KUDO. Well, maybe not all webhooks, but we have one, the instance admission. So for the context, without the webhook, you can basically trigger whatever plans you want. There are no securities. So you can have deploy and trigger backup and trigger restore and screw your data. Yeah, so we've added them a couple of months ago. Alena did it, and back then it was an experimental. And you have to opt into that, and I'm strongly in favor of making mandatory and install it by default always.
Yes, I'm the same.
When you say install by default, how do we manage certificates in that particular world?
That's a big question, yes. So by default, I would say we require cert manager with an option to have like something like a dummy or local certificate or something. I think Vane, did you post something? I think somebody posted something. So that would be nice to have like a local development option for people to try out KUDO or to locally develop KUDO without having to go through all the hassle of setting up a tunnel and having cert manager running locally. I haven't looked too much into it, but that would be my preferred like choice. So we have a simple, not production solution for development, and then cert manager for everything that's actually running something usable.
It sounds like, correct me if I'm off on this, but it sounds like we have three things to work out, right? One is development, which I totally agree with. It'd be great to have a solution around that. Two is the ease of use of installing KUDO and having it working installed, and I don't care about certs. And three, I create my own certifications, and I need those certifications to be used within KUDO.
Yeah, I think that are the three choices that Dane also posted.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so yeah, it was in this Slack channel, I think. Like, yeah, but I can explain. Like, mostly it's just like I agree that cert manager is becoming like more and more impressionable for a lot of installation operators. Like with KubeBuilder V2, you require to have cert manager, but then again, there's some other group of operators, let's say like Kubeflow, just ripped off cert manager from their operator, and there's an issue open for KubeBuilder to provide a way, document the way how they can provide their own certificates. So that's also understandable where users would like to have their own certificate for mutation webhooks and things like that. But I'm also okay with that. Like if during first phase we don't provide that until somebody comes and opens an issue and say, hey, we need that. But yeah, like I agree that if we require cert manager, where I'm worried is most about our CI builds and all the places where we're testing right now. That will have to be changed and have a certain impact on that. So that's why I was saying maybe we can have a dummy certificate with a flag that Alexei also like give a like possible solution. We give a flag and we say, yeah, I can do KUDO init with like with the self-signed certificate, and we know that this is not for production or anything like that, and go ahead with that. And later, yeah, like I can certainly see that people are going to come when KUDO will be widely used, asking for how they can provide their own certificates. And we will have to provide a way to, like their secrets or things or other ways, or maybe certificate signing requests. That's the other operators also doing. Like you have provide that object and we just use the signing request. But yeah, like it will happen. So I'm okay with cert manager. So I'm not opposing that. I know that's the way to go, and it will be more and more widely accepted. Yeah.
Hey, oh, go ahead, Ken. I don't want to interrupt you, but I have a thought.
Yeah, no, I don't know if my follow-on to that is it sounds like we should probably have a KEP and acknowledge that we have these three needs, and then provide implementation for details around the two, as you were pointing out, Zane. Leaving open the third is fine. I feel comfortable with that as well, knowing that if demand might force us to implement it.
I have a quick thought, and this kind of leads into maybe as well, and we can come back to it, but a potential release theme idea. If you were to think of like KUDO as an operator in and of itself and something that we want to solve as dependencies, a cert manager install becomes a dependency of KUDO, right? And I'm wondering if we could frame this or do this in such a way, and it kind of gets into like, can KUDO manage KUDO from this perspective? It would be interesting to have like global or like transitive dependencies where we may also have other operators that depend on cert manager, and cert manager expects to be able to run globally, right? You can't have multiple instances of cert manager as far as I know, and I'll just threw a question to cert manager and Kubernetes like to ask this, But it would be very interesting to be able to say that, and so like in our dependency model, and how we handle dependencies as of KUDO goes, we enable someone to say in that camp, or make it a requirement maybe, that a global or transitive dependency is a possibility here, right? I check if I have an instance of cert manager installed. If not, I'm going to install one. If I do have it, I'm going to use it, right? And that gets into leading into like, okay, we have this operator interface idea and a bunch of other things. Can we repurpose that and say, hey, the webhook component of that also, like KUDO is an operator in and of itself. Why can't KUDO run as its own instance, I guess, where it sees its own transitive dependencies? When KUDO stands up, it spins those up. And I know that seems like very abstract right now, but I think it would go a long way to like making, I'm wondering if there's a way we can account for that as we go about designing this, right? Like make it, go with the direction we're going now, but as soon as we were to ship something like that, okay, we can switch KUDO over to the same dependency system that we'd expect any other operator to use, right? And reduce the magic around KUDO itself.
First of all, that's very meta of you.
I know, right?
KUDO managing KUDO. Second, we haven't figured out dependencies for KUDO operators at all, right?
No. So this is saying that this would say like maybe we think about the priority of that, right? And make that a higher priority.
I have thought a little bit about KUDO, managing KUDO in the context of upgrading and installation, and I quickly stopped thinking about it, to be honest, because no, I don't know how.
It could be, I mean, we just have to put some thought into it, but you can imagine a bootstrap controller that manages KUDO, and then it's very minimalistic and
yeah, it depends on if it, like the way KUDO is structured right now from a process structure, it's harder to do, right? But if you were to imagine a separate container in that pod whose job is to be like do the webhook thing, right? Like there's ways, right? Like maybe this is something as we get into this cap, we really think about like dependencies, transitive dependencies, and why is KUDO, or at least identify like why KUDO has to be God rather than like maintainable in the same way. That's all. Like
Are the webhooks built as operator versions instances?
not today. No, it's a net HTTP server that started up alongside the controller in the same process.
What if they were operator version instances and one of the plan steps was to go make a cert?
Well, I mean, the problem is at least the admission webhook controls writing to instances of operator versions. So having an instance that creates the webhook that controls writing to an instance, yeah.
No catch-22 there, but
Yeah.
That I think phrases the same thing that Jared's talking about, where
Yeah.
install KUDO, then you want a webhook. Great, let's install a webhook instance, but we need this other dependency, which is cert manager. That's another instance.
Yeah.
And then KUDO does manage everything. But
I think it kind of makes sense, especially if we're thinking about like having multiple KUDO instances in a cluster and stuff like that, different namespaces and so on.
in some ways, it kind of feels like the controller manager in Kubernetes. So like at first you had controllers just all willy-nilly, and then you have this manager, and the manager can be configured with what controllers should be on or off. And then in that way, you could actually have multiple managers with different federated controllers. So I mean, there's some precedence here. It's a matter of whether this makes sense within KUDO.
Yeah.
But you could see KUDO, like, yeah, it definitely adds some complexity.
Yeah, it probably adds a lot of complexity, yes.
Well, can we?
Yeah, exactly. Can we just like step out of this inception? And so do we all agree on that webhooks has to become mandatory in KUDO? So we want to, and yeah, are we all agreeing, or is anybody opposed to that?
I'm agreeing. I just want to make sure we solve the cert manager component piece before. I think that's kind of what we're all like. Everyone's already said, but I'll also agree we need to solve the cert manager piece of this before we make it a default or on by default, and that is figuring out if there's a best practice established by the cert manager team of like what's the right way to is there a practice right now for making sure that nobody's installing like 5 different cert manager instances, right? And how do we detect and maybe that's just a flag, right? Maybe that's a flag pointing at an existing cert manager instance if someone has it in a weird space. Maybe that's the real answer for now.
Can we target a
I'm not
cap?
sure we should I'm not sure we should even like try to solve this already.
Yeah,
I mean,
I don't think we need to solve that. From my perspective, I'm pretty happy to just say site manager is required. Make sure it's there.
that's what we do right now, right? We say if you want to use webhooks, you have to install Cert Manager. That's how we do it.
I think it makes sense to discuss or think about how we solve that problem, but I don't think we need to solve it before making webhooks mandatory.
I just want to point out like the ability to trigger plans and having multiple plans. We already have it right now, and hence the risk of people screwing up their installations is already there. Like once we release this version, people will be able to restore through backup or something.
Yeah, I would like also to like step back, like and try to understand like why cert manager is like a requirement, KubeBuild or other operators. It's basically because when people are like generating their operators, KubeBuilder, people don't want to be responsible for that, right? So here, for example, if I'm generating a certificate for Kafka or Cassandra, I would definitely would like to go with cert manager because we don't want to handle for the developers operator or third-party operators to be responsible like KUDO providing them certificate, because this is not KUDO job to provide certificates there. But if for KUDO itself, I think it's sensible to know like like if we provide a way to start the KUDO with self-signed certificates and later provide a like a documentation like how to run KUDO in production, where it's like compulsory to run with the cert manager, because we don't want to do that. But everywhere where our people like are doing demos and things like that, right now it's kubectl KUDO init and it's working, right? And like I do kind of create cluster and it's after that it's working. I would like to somehow maintain that for a while till like we have more expansion, more adoption, and then later once it's done, we say, yeah, you know what, cert manager is now widely adopted. If I start a kind or minikube or anything like that, cert manager is already installed there. Then we like jump to the other side. So I just want to make sure that people don't complain in our Slack channel or other places like, hey, now I cannot install KUDO, like it's broken or somehow, things like that.
Yes, I agree. Yeah.
I don't know. I hear you, and I totally. It makes sense what you're saying. I'm okay if things change that people need to change too, and if we have some complaints, I think that's fantastic. That we have people that care enough to actually share their sentiments and challenges. I don't want to make things difficult at all. Like I'm not proposing that, but what I am saying is, regardless of certificates, I think we're closely, if not already there, at a point with KUDO that it's just not even functional without webhooks. So if we're saying we have to have the webhooks, which is really what we're saying, I mean, that started the conversation, right? Like question is, do we want to make webhooks required? And I don't even know how to continue down the process of building out KUDO without webhooks. So we might as well bite the bullet and come up with a good solution. And then all of the things that we're currently talking about, I think it's going to take time. I feel like we have to build out. That's the reason for the KEP. Let's create a KEP and try to understand it.
That's exactly, yes. You hit the point that like that's a beautiful way to put it. Like yes, we maybe we're adding another foot gun in here now, but we shouldn't. I like the reason I want this cap and to add like transitive dependencies and really think about this problem and prioritize this problem is we can't just keep adding components. Like soon it'll be Istio, right? Like okay, now we have our own monitoring stack and that's another foot gun, right? Like I want to think about this in a way that we can like actually help ourselves while helping other people. And if we're building out KUDO and we're not helping ourselves as we're building KUDO, and we're just creating something with 1 million foot guns, are the people who are going to use our own operators are going to have those same foot guns as well, right? And like that's I have no qualms with turning it on right now. It's a matter of what we prioritize now that we've turned it on.
Are you saying foot guns?
Yes, foot guns.
I've never heard that.
No, you've never heard the like
Are you? Who carries a foot gun? Now I've got all kinds of mental images in my head that I can't get rid of.
So I'll read the definition real quick because actually I'm amazed because it is actually coming out of programming. I did not know this. I just any feature whose addition to a product results in the user shooting themselves in the foot.
So it's not a gun you shoot with your foot. It's the destination of the bullet.
Exactly.
Got it. Okay. All right.
Okay, so you know how Google used to have the "Don't be evil" motto in the mantra. I want to be the anti-foot gun. That should be our slogan.
No more foot guns.
Steel-toed boots.
Nice.
Yes.
Put a spur on it, brother, sister. All right. Sorry to distract.
I just think that cap and that thing becomes more important now that we say yes, this is default, right? Like
yeah. Hopefully, building out the cap forces. Hopefully we take the opportunity to think bigger picture on this one. I agree completely. So it might take a little bit of time. Can we schedule this cap for 12 for the next release essentially?
I think that's a great idea. Yeah.
What is again like this cap?
Dependency management.
Okay, dependency management for operators or for everything.
I would create 2 caps then, I guess. One is a cap for webhook management, but potentially dependent upon how we manage dependencies.
Yeah, I agree with that. Like so, yeah, one for dependencies themselves, and then 2 for managing KUDO's dependencies with KUDO's dependency management. That's a mouthful, right? You can or at least explore if we can use that same mechanism for webhooks and for any other things that come out, like any other dependencies.
To be hopefully more clear, by dependencies, we're not talking like client Go. We're talking about Kubernetes ecosystem dependencies.
Yes.
Runtime dependencies. Right.
Yeah, runtime dependencies. Yeah. This might venture into Koi.
This might, yeah.
Yeah.
Sounds good. Yeah.
Seems like a lot.
Yeah, I was going to say like to the answer of the Alexei original, like if we want webhooks, I think answer is yes, right? Everybody wants webhooks in. And the other is like my question was like, if we want cert manager, we should try to find answer by ourselves. And the answer should not be because KubeBuilder is doing it, right? So I think like that is not like acceptable from, at least from my point of view, because in KubeBuilder, it's the cert manager team who added that and they want it to be compulsory everywhere, right? So if they are contributing, so if only thing, if we can in the cap answer that we need cert manager because of that and like it's justified, then yes, go ahead and try to find out something that is dependency management and things like that. But if just we want because it's hype or it's the fashion, I would not agree. So that's the only point.
So the specifics are that we need a cert for our webhook, and the default by KUDO.
That's the only thing we actually need: the certificate for our webhook. Everything else is whatever. And yes, we can do something insecure if we care about UX more than we care about security. And I think this is a valid point. We can say there is something self-signed, and it comes with an option which clearly says you should not do it in production, and then KUDO init one command and it still works. So
No, but my question is like if the cert manager is providing me more security than self-signed, because if people just install right now the cert manager operator, it's kind of the self-signed certificates, right? So it's not like it's root signed. So it can give, instead of like a fake sense of security when the problem is the same, right? Because these are the self-signed certificates just provided by somebody who is injecting it. So we should know like if, hey, if you want to use cert manager, then do this extra step also to make sure, like this is going to be secure. That was the point, yeah.
Excellent. Thanks for leading that, Alexei, and everyone that participated. I think that's going to be great to see where we land on that. Always interesting how certain topics bring up a whole can of worms with it, right? Like, or all we wanted was webhooks. No. Okay. What's next? I guess the next thing on the list is KUDO. I guess as far as communication on KUDO is concerned, there is obviously interest in moving our testing out into a separate repository that's been complete. It still hasn't been rid of KUDO, and that's going to be a requirement. We have a meeting on Friday with some Red Hatters regarding its use in the ecosystem, like Operator SDK. And so looking forward to that. I think the next big thing is we need to be able to have, when using KUDO, an ability to start up the control plane, which already exists, but it also has to be able to inject a controller or operator into that control plane before running tests. So that I am slated to work on. Help is welcomed if people want to jump in, but that's the next step. That's probably all for KUDO. As soon as I expect that to be done, obviously before the 0.12 release of KUDO, and I would hope that the 0.12 would include a total switch over to using KUDO and the removal of everything that was test oriented within KUDO itself. Is that good? Okay. Yeah, before we jump into reviews, I'll just leave it to open discussions now. Is there anything that someone wants to bring up to the...
I have three things I wanted to call out real quick from the community side. One is we've created 2 new repos. One is called community. The other is called infrastructure. Community, I'm going to be, we need to prep a governance document just so it's easier for us in the CNCF sandbox, and that'll just list out how we do community consensus on things, how features go in, what our meetings are, how we vote, right? What the leadership it looks like, and how to become that leadership. Just stuff like that, so that
Is there a GitHub?
There is a
GitHub repository?
Yeah, KUDO builder/community. And then so I would love some help with that. I'm going to put up a governance.md as soon as I have a free moment to type all that up. And then the other one, and I'm pairing with this with Tom on Friday, is an infrastructure repo. We're getting to the point where we have quite a bit of infrastructure, and when I say infrastructure, I mean not only our repositories for KUDO packages on GCS, but we also have the operators repo kudo.dev, now the Terraform one, with the KUDO base one. So getting some semblance of infrastructure as code around all of that in GitHub, I think, is going to really help with unifying how we do that, especially with our governance and how we apply labels and tags to everything. And there's probably even things in Circle and some other stuff we'll want to get in as code. So what I would say after that is we don't want to be doing any one-offs by hand. I think during the next community meeting we'll be able to present the Terraform itself and how that shook out and how people can contribute to that. That'll come with its own CI/CD process of actually creating these changes. Tom, is there anything you want to add on that one?
No, I'm interested to see where we go, so
Yeah.
I'm happy to help out.
And then a quick CNCF sandbox update. I presented to quite a few CNCF TOC members. I'm working on the due diligence, although technically, per CNCF guidelines and per talking to some TOC members, I don't actually have to fill this due diligence out, but SIG-app delivery is requesting it. So I don't know. We just decided to go with what SIG-app delivery wants for this moment. And then I'm trying to have that ready so that by next Wednesday or Tuesday's TOC meeting, we can hopefully get them to have it all approved and call for a vote on CNC Sandbox. And I have a couple committed votes, and we need 3, so I think we have enough for it. But I want as much consensus within the TOC possible going into that. I think that's it. And then the only other thing happening is the CNCF Hub. I think it's a little too early to talk about that, but I think I'll put the link into the proposal in the repo. And I think people should just go take a look, and because I do think this will affect us down the line. And we are being asked to be, and we have been asked since December to be a stakeholder in the CNCF Hub. So that will be happening Monday or Tuesday, at least at the TOC meeting, but definitely Monday. There's a meeting. There's a couple other people wanting to get involved in that. So I'll send out that thread and all that information. So that's it for any discussion or any. That's it for me. I don't have anything else at the moment. Hey York, we're in the open discussion part.
Yeah, hi.
Boing. Greatly missed, Jordan. There he is live. Okay, any other open discussion topics? I made some notes while Jared was speaking. I put in the CNCF Hub doc link, as well as references to the repos. I would say within those repos, it would be very helpful to get readmes in there fairly quickly as to what their intentions and purposes are. Otherwise, yeah, anyway.
Yeah, I'll do that. I'll do that today or tomorrow at the latest. So that's okay.
Yeah, sweet. I think that's it, unless we want to do some KEP reviews, but we've already kind of gone through our KEPs. I don't know, I guess we could go see what's outstanding. I just want to, before
Let's
we
do
run
that
out
on
of
the
time.
triage.
Okay, great. Yeah, perfect. If everybody's good with that, we have a triage meeting on Friday. I don't know what time that is, but
9 your time, 10, and it would be
exactly
3 p.m. CET, I think.
perfect. Yeah, so we will go ahead and do KEP NPR reviews. I don't think we'll make it through again. So we have, if people have priorities, make sure you bring them. Things that are being missed is we haven't gone through any of the operator PRs or issues well, that's probably the big one. Cuddle. So there's things to go through. And maybe we'll make that a part of our regular process instead of doing it in the community meeting itself. I would just suggest that there's one thing that's outstanding, meaning not done, is we don't have sprint themes for this release iteration, so we probably should focus around that. You can kind of see some things coming together though. The ones that are pretty obvious is Terraform support, and webhook, and the KEPs associated with that, and probably Cuddle. So those 3 stand out. Okay, last chance. The next meeting, March 26th, that is the 4th Thursday. So we're switching to Thursday. I'll get the announcement out. Does anybody want to volunteer to host?
Yeah, I'll host. It's been a while.
Perfect. So we'll have Jared as host, and we'll see you then. Thanks.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.